New at 10, a man convicted in one of San Francisco's most horrific killings is coming up for parole tomorrow.
Nearly 50 years after the murder, rape, and torture of a young couple in Potrero Hill, the victim's family says they are still traumatized.
KTVU's Evan Cernowski has more now on the family's fight to keep the killer behind bars. But first, a warning. Some may find this story disturbing.
Sadly, what was visited on our family that night in 1974 is an example of how savage and cruel the world can be.
Eric Carlson says his brother's murder 48 years ago still haunts his family. On Tuesday, the convicted killer, Angelo Pavaggio, is up for parole for the 18th time.
The idea that this person would be out on the streets is enough to cause grave concern.
What could seem like the distant past to some still consumes those involved.
It was worst case I ever worked.
Retired SFPD homicide inspector Jack Cleary is now 90, but he remembers the case like it was yesterday. It began in the early morning hours on April 18, 1974, when an intruder slipped into Frank and Annette Carlson's home on 24th and Kansas Street. He held the woman at knife point, tied up the 25-year-old husband, and bludgeoned him to death in front of his screaming wife.
If that man was picked up and put up on the top of a 10-story building and held by his ankles and let go, he wouldn't have that much head injury.
Unfortunately, the violence didn't stop there. The assailant took Annette upstairs, raping and torturing her. After 3 hours, he left her for dead with a fractured skull and broken arms.
And it was some paint thinner. He brought it out, spread it around the house, and set fire to the house.
But amazingly, Annette came to, crawled through the flames and out an upstairs window where she called for help and was rescued. Cleary worked the high-profile case with his partner, Frank Falzon, but finding the killer was no easy task.
We were getting desperate, Frank and I. We couldn't get absolutely nothing at all.
After days of dead ends, they had Annette draw pictures of several rings the killer stole and gave them to the newspaper, hoping for a break.
We got a phone call from a jewelry store on Market Street, and he says, inspectors, he said, I think I can help you out.
Sure enough, the clue led to a postal worker who lived on the same block as the couple. Annette ID'd Pavaggio in a lineup, and he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to die in the gas chamber. The Supreme Court in 1976 ruled the death penalty unconstitutional, and Pavaggio's sentence became life with parole. Starting in 1980, he began going before the parole board nearly every single year. So rather than processing their trauma and moving on, the victim's family has been forced to relive this horror over and over again as they fight to keep the killer behind bars.
You've got to engage and you've got to participate, and that means living it all over again. And that's the hard part.
We reached out to Pavaggio's attorney, who did not respond. In the past, his attorney said he's admitted to his crime, is remorseful, and has been rehabilitated. Frank's brother isn't convinced. He wants to protect Annette, who's been mentally scarred for life.
I love my sister-in-law very much, and I do not think, given the circumstances of the crime, she should have to suffer anymore.
In San Francisco, Evan Cernowski, KTVU, Fox 2 News.